Hey, it's Frank here. Let me tell you a real story in order to help you understand this topic. On the morning of December 18th, 2025, Margaret Harrison sat at her kitchen table, staring at three envelopes she'd been afraid to open for 6 days. At 73 years old, the retired school teacher had done everything right, saved diligently, planned her retirement down to the dollar, but she was facing a mathematical reality that had quietly shattered her 30-year plan. The television told her inflation had cooled to 2.7%. The Federal Reserve said the economy was stabilizing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics announced November's numbers proved the crisis was over. Margaret wanted to believe them. She needed to believe them. But the three envelopes told a different story. Her Medicare Part B premium had jumped 9.7%, $17.90 per month. Her property tax bill up 16%. A handwritten note from her granddaughter asking why eggs now cost $349. Margaret spent the week trying to reconcile the numbers. If inflation was really 2.7%, why had her actual monthly costs increased by over $300 in 12 months? She called the Bureau of Labor Statistics twice. Both times, the representative explained the CPI measures a basket for all urban consumers. Individual experiences may vary. That night, Margaret skipped her blood pressure medication refill. It cost $68. The government said inflation was 2.7%, but Margaret Harrison was holding three envelopes that proved the entire official number was a lie. The CPI uses something called hedonic adjustments on certain categories. If your new laptop has better features than last year's model, statisticians reduce its price in the index to account for quality improvement. Research from the Bureau of Labor Statistics suggests the net effect across all categories is close to zero, benefiting some items while penalizing others. But here's the problem. Hedonic adjustments don't help Margaret Harrison when she's buying eggs that cost 36.8% more than they did a year ago. The quality of an egg hasn't improved. It's the same egg, but it costs $340 instead of $2.14. The official inflation number assumes you'll substitute cheaper alternatives when prices rise. Buy hamburger instead of steak. Switch to generic brands. Downgrade your consumption patterns. But ground beef now costs $6.30 per pound, up 63% since 2020. There's no substitution escape hatch when every category you depend on is inflating faster than the official number suggests. And property taxes create an even deeper trap because you can't substitute away from them. Even in Florida, property taxes increased 9.5% per year since 2019. Texas, Colorado, Georgia, and New York are all seeing rapid appreciation combined with higher local levies, creating sharp year-over-year jumps. You can't move to escape it. Housing appreciation drives property tax increases nationwide. The system compounds this pain through a deliberate mismatch. Social Security cost of living adjustments use the CPI for urban wage earners and clerical workers, which tracks working age consumption patterns, not senior spending. In 2024, roughly 62% of seniors said the 3.2% COLA was insufficient to cover their expenses. The 2.5% COLA for 2025 leaves them even further behind. So what does real senior inflation actually look like when you build the basket they live in instead of the one statisticians measure? Let's construct it using verified data from 2024 through 2025. Medicare Part B premiums increased 9.7%, that $17.90 monthly jump. Medicare Advantage plans averaged a 10% increase, climbing from $60 to $66 monthly. Food costs weighted for senior consumption patterns that skew heavily toward eggs and beef rose 5.5% blended, but that aggregate hides the 36.8% spike in eggs and the 11.6% increase in beef and veal. Property taxes nationwide jumped 16% in 2024 based on median bills. Utilities, which are included in the CPI but often understated for senior households, rose 4.2%. Auto insurance, another CPI component that hits fixed-income households hard, increased 11.3% annually. Now assume a typical senior household allocates 20% of their budget to healthcare, 15% to food, 18% to property taxes, 12% to utilities, and 35% to other expenses weighted at the CPI average of roughly 3%. The calculation looks like this: healthcare at 10%, 2 equals 2%, food at 5.5%, dough at 15 equals 83%, property taxes at 16%, 18 equals 2.88%, utilities at 4.2%, 0.12 equals 5%, other expenses at 3%, 35 equals 1.05%. Total those components and you get 7.26%. That's conservative. Add transportation services, which increase 7.3%, and the erosion accelerates. This is why nearly 40% of seniors said they plan to find work due to insufficient cost of living adjustments. From 2020 through 2024, food prices increased 30%, property taxes climbed 27%, and healthcare costs surged, while official CPI reported cumulative inflation around 28%. The standard responses to this crisis sound reasonable until you examine them closely. The first suggestion is always to switch to generic drugs or cheaper food options, but 47.76% of seniors age 65 and over stated they were paying significantly more in groceries compared to 2024, and you can't substitute away from eggs, beef, and property taxes. The CPI assumes you'll buy hamburger instead of steak, but ground beef is now $6.32 per pound, up 63% since 2020. There's no downgrade left when the cheaper option has already doubled in price. The second suggestion is to downsize your home or move to a low-tax state. But even in Florida, property taxes increased 9.5% per year since 2019. Texas, Colorado, Georgia, and New York are all experiencing rapid appreciation combined with higher local levies that create sharp year-over-year jumps. There's no geographic escape when housing appreciation drives property tax increases nationwide. You can sell your home and move, but you're trading one inflating asset for another while paying transaction costs that consume whatever equity you've built. The third hope is that Medicare will stabilize and stop consuming your Social Security increases. But 2026 will be the third straight year that the Part B standard monthly premium has gone up faster than Social Security's cost of living adjustment. The structural deficit in Medicare means premiums will continue rising faster than general inflation for the foreseeable future. This isn't a temporary spike, it's the new baseline. Here's the liquidity squeeze in plain terms. Seniors are on fixed incomes. Social Security increases 2.5 to 3.2% annually based on CPI. Their actual costs increase 7 to 10% or more based on senior-specific consumption patterns. The gap widens every single year. You can't belt-tighten your way out of a structural deficit when your income grows at 3% and your costs grow at 10%. The system isn't designed to keep up with senior-specific inflation. It's designed to report an average that makes policymakers comfortable. So, what actually works when your purchasing power erodes 10% annually, while official statistics celebrate 2.7% inflation? Cash savings lose 10% real purchasing power every year using senior inflation rates. Bonds yielding 4 to 5% still deliver negative real returns against 10% senior inflation. Stock dividends averaging 2% get destroyed by the actual inflation rate you're experiencing. There's one asset class that's tracked real living costs for 50 years, and it's the one most financial advisors tell you to avoid. Silver delivered a 15.46% return during the 1970s stagflation era, while inflation averaged 7.4% annually when official CPI hit 13.5% in 1980. Silver prices skyrocketed from $183 to $30.13 per ounce, achieving a compound annual growth rate of 32.3%. In modern performance, silver gained approximately 20% throughout 2024 compared to 2023 levels. While official inflation was reported at 2.7 to 2.9%, silver outperformed, tracking closer to the real inflation seniors actually experience. A comprehensive study analyzing data from 1791 through 2010 found that while gold demonstrates stronger long-term CPI hedging, silver shows particularly robust performance during high inflation regimes. During periods exceeding 5% annual inflation, silver demonstrates strong positive correlation with CPI in the 0.7 to 0.9 range. This isn't theory. It's 5 decades of verified data showing that when real inflation diverges from official numbers, silver reprices to match the reality people are living. Unlike gold, which serves primarily as a monetary metal, over 50% of silver demand comes from industrial applications. Solar energy alone accounts for 16% of global demand. That consumption is structural. You can't build solar panels without silver. This creates a supply crunch that amplifies price movements during inflation. The global silver market deficit is now in its 5th consecutive year and projected to continue into 2026. When industrial demand collides with monetary demand during inflationary periods, silver doesn't just keep pace with inflation, it overshoots. Current silver price sits around $29 per ounce as of late 2024. Analysts predict silver could push toward $40 per ounce in a bullish scenario for 2025, a 38% gain that would actually keep pace with compounded senior inflation over multiple years. Since 2000, silver has been an efficient hedge against inflation, with silver holders managing to preserve their purchasing power despite rising consumer prices. In April 2011, silver achieved its highest real return at 105.63% during the post-financial crisis inflation surge. You don't need to go all in. A 10 to 15% portfolio allocation to physical silver acts as a shock absorber. When healthcare costs spike 10% and food jumps 8%, silver tends to move 15 to 25% in the same environment, offsetting the erosion in your fixed income. At $29 per ounce, a $10,000 position buys approximately 345 ounces. If silver hits $40 at the conservative 2025 target, that's $13,800. A 38% gain versus 2.5% from bonds that lose purchasing power against real senior inflation. Shocked? So am I. Let's stick together, be each other's support, and be vigilant about what's actually happening. Take care of yourselves and keep watching Retirees Info to stay updated.